Ramadan doesn't just arrive on the calendar, it arrives in the heart. And every year, it comes carrying a silent message. It's time to return for some people. That return begins with fasting, for others, with charity. But for many, it begins with the very first Salah of Ramadan, a prayer that feels different, deeper, and heavier than the rest of the year. The moment you stand for that first prayer, something inside shifts. It's like your soul finally exhales after months of being lost in noise, screens, distractions, and regrets. You raise your hands for takbeer, and suddenly, the world behind you becomes small, and Allah becomes near. In that single motion, you realize that Ramadan isn't about changing your routine, it's about transforming your heart. Salah in Ramadan has a power that cannot be described in simple words. It softens people who were once hardened. It pulls back those who drifted away. It wakes up a conscience that had been sleeping for too long. The same prayer you rushed throughout the year suddenly becomes the anchor of your life. And in that moment, you can feel something returning, your peace. When your forehead touches the ground in sujud during Ramadan, it's not just worship, it's release. Every burden you've been hiding, every sin you've been running from, every fear you've been carrying, you place it all on the ground before the one who already knows. And somehow, without any dramatic miracle, your heart feels lighter, completely lighter, like the kind of peace that money can't buy and people can't give. This is the power of Salah in Ramadan. It reconnects you with the one who created peace itself. For some, that first prayer brings tears they didn't expect. For others, it brings silence they desperately needed. And for many, it brings a feeling they haven't felt in a long time. Hope. Hope that Allah hasn't forgotten them. Hope that their story can still change. Hope that this Ramadan might finally be the one that transforms their entire life. Ramadan Salah is not just worship. It's a new beginning. And this beginning starts with one step, standing before Allah with a sincere heart, ready to return. When the heart starts listening, there comes a moment in Ramadan when your Salah stops being a routine and starts becoming a conversation. Not a conversation of words, but of feelings, the kind you can't explain to people, but Allah understands perfectly. It usually happens quietly, without any dramatic sign. One night you stand to pray, and suddenly, your heart becomes more awake than your body. You begin reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, and for the first time in a long time, you actually hear yourself. The words don't pass through your lips, they pass through your soul. Guide us to the straight path. You've said this 1,000 times, but tonight, it feels like you're saying it for the first time. Tonight, you truly mean it. This is the power of Salah in Ramadan. It turns familiar words into lifelines. As you continue praying, you feel something opening inside you. You can't see it, but you feel it. Your heart is responding. Every verse becomes a reminder. Every bowing becomes a surrender. Every sujud becomes a place where the heart finally stops pretending to be strong. For months, you carried things silently, mistakes you regret, sadness you hide, wounds no one knows about. But in Ramadan, when you place your head on the ground, it feels like your heart finally whispers, "I'm tired," and Allah answers in the only way He can, by comforting the soul directly. You start realizing that Salah was never a burden. It was always meant to be a shelter, a quiet refuge in a world that never stops demanding from you. And in Ramadan, that refuge becomes wider, deeper, more alive. There is a strange sweetness in these prayers, the sweetness of being understood without speaking, the sweetness of being forgiven without defending yourself, the sweetness of knowing that even if the world doesn't see your struggle, Allah does. And suddenly, what used to feel like an obligation now feels like healing. Ramadan doesn't just change how you pray. It changes why you pray. Instead of praying because you have to, you start praying because your heart needs it. Because without it, life feels heavier. Because with it, you feel closer, not just to Allah, but to the person you are meant to become. This is where true transformation begins, not in the body, but in the heart that finally starts listening. The night prayer that changes everything. There's something different about the nights of Ramadan, a stillness, a calm, a quiet invitation from Allah that you can almost feel in the air. And for many people, the true power of Salah begins when they stand for the night prayer, long after the world has gone to sleep. It's in these hours, when the streets are silent and the distractions fade, that the heart speaks its truth. You stand for prayer, maybe sleepy, maybe unsure, maybe emotionally drained. But the moment you say, Allahu Akbar, a curtain drops between you and the world. Suddenly, it's just you, and the one who knows you better than you know yourself. You start reciting, and your voice sounds different, softer, slower, honest. Because night prayer doesn't require performance. It requires sincerity. You don't need to impress anyone. You don't need to hide anything. In the darkness, the heart becomes real. As you move through the prayer, something begins to happen. The things that felt heavy during the day feel lighter now. The wounds that kept reopening suddenly feel soothed. The regrets that haunted you start losing their power. Because Qiyam al-Layl isn't just worship, it's therapy for the soul. Written by Allah himself, when you go into ruku, your body bows, but your ego bows with it. You realize how small you really are, and somehow that smallness brings peace. Then comes sujud, the place where the heart melts. In sujud, you're at the lowest point physically, but spiritually, you're at the highest point a human can reach. And in that position, you whisper things you've never said out loud. Ya Allah, help me. Ya Allah, forgive me. Ya Allah, guide me before I lose myself. And the beautiful thing, you don't need fancy words. A whisper is enough. A tear is enough. Even silence is enough. Because Allah understands what the heart cannot say. By the time you finish the prayer, the room is the same, but you are not. Something inside feels clearer, calmer, more hopeful. This is why the night prayers of Ramadan are special. They don't just bring reward, they bring transformation. In these quiet moments, you realize something powerful. Allah was never far. It was your heart that needed the silence of the night to feel his closeness. When Salah cleans the dust of the soul, as Ramadan continues, something subtle but powerful begins to happen inside you. It's not sudden, it's not dramatic, it's slow, quiet, almost invisible, like dust being wiped away from a mirror. That mirror is your heart. And the cloth that cleans it is Salah. You don't notice the change at first. You're just praying, trying to be consistent, trying to stay focused. Some prayers feel strong, others feel weak. Some days you're full of energy, other days you're exhausted. But day by day, prayer after prayer, a transformation begins, not in your life outside, but in your life inside. One evening, you're in prayer, and suddenly you realize something. The sins that once felt normal now feel uncomfortable. The habits that once felt harmless now feel heavy. The distractions that once pulled your heart away now feel empty. Why? Because Salah is cleaning you from the inside, slowly, gently, beautifully. When you pray in Ramadan, the heart undergoes a kind of washing. Every bow polishes it. Every sujud softens it. Every verse of Quran sinks deeper than before. Things you used to ignore suddenly matter. Things you used to chase suddenly look meaningless. The heart, which was once buried under layers of regret, fear, desire, and chaos, starts shining again. Salah doesn't just change what you do, it changes what you feel. You begin noticing your reactions shift. You become calmer. You get angry less easily. You find yourself forgiving faster. You listen more. You speak softer. You think before you act. And the craziest part? You don't even realize you're changing. The people around you do. This is the quiet magic of Salah in Ramadan. It does not shout. It works silently. There comes a moment when you look back and realize that the things that used to break you no longer destroy you. The doubts that once overwhelmed you no longer control you. The temptations that once pulled you away now barely whisper. Because a heart polished by prayer becomes harder for the world to damage. And one day, mid-prayer, with your forehead on the ground, you feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Purity. Not perfection, purity. A sense that your heart is finally breathing again. This is the power of Salah in Ramadan. It cleans the dust the world keeps placing on your soul. The day you realize Allah was listening all along. There comes a point in Ramadan when something extraordinary happens, not outside you, but within you. A moment when you pause after Salah, and for the first time, you feel it. The reality that Allah has been listening to every word, every whisper, every silent request you buried deep inside. It doesn't happen with a miracle. It doesn't happen with a flash of light. It happens quietly, like a gentle tap on the heart. Maybe you were making dua in sujud. Maybe you were praying after a long day of struggle. Maybe you were wiping tears after Fajr. But suddenly, it hits you. Allah heard me. He always did. And that realization changes everything. Salah no longer feels like a duty. It feels like a conversation with someone who actually understands you. Someone who knows the worries you hide from people. Someone who sees the battles you fight alone. Someone who knows how tired you are even when you smile. When you stand in prayer, your posture becomes different. Your recitation becomes calmer. Your heart becomes softer. Because now, you're not praying to complete a task. You're praying to connect with the one who never left your side. In Ramadan, Allah opens doors inside your heart that you didn't even know existed. One day you're praying with a distracted mind, struggling to focus. And the next day, you find yourself lost in the beauty of your own Salah, lost in the peace you didn't know you were missing, lost in the comfort you didn't know you needed. And in this moment, something beautiful happens. You begin to trust Allah again. You trust that He hears the dua you make through tears. You trust that He sees the pain you hide. You trust that He knows the intentions no one else appreciates. You trust that the changes you're trying to make are not going unnoticed. The heart that once felt distant now feels seen. The soul that once felt empty now feels nourished. The mind that once felt scattered now feels steady. This is the moment when prayer stops being a ritual and becomes a relationship. Because once you taste the sweetness of knowing that Allah listens, you start praying differently. You start living differently. And deep down, you begin to understand a truth many people take years to learn. Your salah was never being ignored. Your heart just needed Ramadan to finally feel the answer. When salah breaks the chains you're tired of carrying, there comes a moment in Ramadan when you finally face something you've been avoiding for a long time. The weight you've been carrying, the habits that control you, the guilt you hide, the mistakes you regret, the emotional scars you pretend don't exist. And in that moment, salah becomes more than worship. It becomes freedom. You stand for prayer after a long day, maybe drained, maybe frustrated, maybe confused about your own life. But when you say Allahu Akbar, you enter a space where your burdens don't chase you. A space where the heart can breathe without fear. A space where your soul feels safe enough to admit, I'm tired of being trapped by my own struggles. Salah in Ramadan is like a key that unlocks chains that you didn't even know were tying you down. In Ruku, your back bends, but your ego bends more. You remember that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be strong all the time. You don't have to fix everything yourself. You just need to return to the one who frees the heart from everything except him. Then comes sujud, the place where the chains finally loosen. Your forehead touches the ground, and you feel something powerful. The freedom to admit your weakness. The freedom to ask for help. The freedom to be vulnerable. The freedom to let go of the sins that keep circling your mind. The freedom to release the pain you've been carrying quietly. Ya Allah, I can't do this alone. Ya Allah, break what's breaking me. Ya Allah, pull me out of what I can't escape. And just like that, the chains you thought were permanent begin to fall apart. Not because life magically changed. Not because the world suddenly became easier, but because prayer makes you stronger, wiser, and more capable of walking away from what harms you. By the time you finish the prayer, something inside feels different. You feel lighter, even if life is still heavy. You feel hopeful, even if you're still healing. You feel free, even if the journey is long. This is the beauty of Salah in Ramadan. It doesn't just free your schedule, it frees your heart. And deep down, you realize something life-changing. The chains were never stronger than you. You just needed Allah to help you break them, one prayer at a time. When Salah teaches you to slow down inside, life before Ramadan moves fast. To fast, days blur into each other, problems pile up, emotions stay unprocessed, and the heart becomes a guest in its own body. Then Ramadan arrives, and through Salah, something powerful begins to happen. You finally slow down. Not outside, but inside. It starts subtly. Maybe during ASR, maybe during Maghrib. You stand to pray, and for the first time in weeks, your mind pauses. The noise that usually controls your thoughts fades. The rush that pushes you through life stops, and without forcing it, your heart settles into a calm it hasn't felt in a long time. This is one of the hidden gifts of Salah in Ramadan. It resets your inner world. You bow in ruku, and you feel your breath deepen. You rise again, and the tension in your shoulders releases. You go into sujud, and the whole world seems to disappear. In those moments, time doesn't slow down. You do. And in that stillness, you begin to understand things you've been avoiding. The forgiveness you owe someone, the apology you've been delaying, the dreams you abandoned because life got too busy, the guilt you've been hiding, the healing you need but never gave yourself. Salah makes you face yourself gently, not with guilt, not with shame, but with clarity. As Ramadan goes on, this inner stillness becomes something you look forward to. You realize that prayer is the one place where you don't have to rush, where you don't have to perform, where you don't have to prove anything. You just have to be present, and in that presence, your heart breathes. You start noticing how these moments affect your life outside the prayer. You become more patient, less reactive, more thoughtful. You listen better. You speak kinder. You pause before anger. You process before responding. Because the calm you find in Salah slowly becomes the calm you carry into the world. This is what Ramadan teaches through prayer, that peace doesn't come from fixing everything around you. It comes from fixing the pace within you. By the end of the prayer, you feel lighter, clearer, more grounded. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet truth settles. Life will always be fast. The world will always demand more. But a heart that learns to slow down in front of Allah never loses itself again. The quiet miracles you don't notice at first. As the days of Ramadan pass, something beautiful begins happening in your life. Not in big, dramatic ways, but in small, quiet miracles that you don't even recognize at first. These changes don't arrive with signs in the sky or angels at your door. They arrive through Salah. The more you pray, the more you start experiencing shifts that feel gentle but powerful. You wake up one day and realize your heart feels lighter than it did last week. You notice you're more patient with people who usually irritate you. You realize you stop responding with anger as quickly as before. You see yourself forgiving things you would have held onto for months. And the craziest part? You didn't force any of this. It happened under the radar, one prayer at a time. That's the thing about Salah in Ramadan. It changes your destiny quietly. While you're standing in prayer, Allah is removing things that harm you. While you're in ruku, He is protecting you from things you never saw coming. While you're in sujud, He's writing peace into your future. While you're whispering dua, He's rearranging your life in ways you don't understand yet. You might think nothing is happening, but everything is happening. One night during Taraweeh, you feel it a little more clearly. While listening to the Quran, something touches your heart. A verse sounds like it was meant specifically for you. You feel seen. You feel understood. You feel chosen. Because every miracle Allah sends your way begins with a softening of the heart. And Ramadan is the season when hearts soften the fastest. You begin noticing how the things you used to crave are losing their attraction. The sins you used to fall into easily now feel heavy. The distractions you used to chase now feel empty. Meanwhile, Salah starts becoming a source of comfort, a place where your anxieties disappear, your mind resets, and your soul realigns. And that's the real miracle. Not wealth, not success, not sudden blessings, but a heart that slowly returns to Allah, a heart that begins to change from the inside. By the end of the prayer, you might not realize it fully, but your entire life is shifting. Allah is clearing paths you haven't walked yet. He's protecting you from harm you never recognized. He's guiding you in ways you didn't ask for, because you asked for something bigger, a connection with Him. And that connection is the greatest miracle of all. When Salah rebuilds what life broke inside you, there comes a point in Ramadan when you look back at your life, not with regret, but with understanding. You begin to see all the moments that broke you, all the disappointments that shaped you, all the wounds you tried to ignore. And in that moment, you realize something profound. Salah has been quietly rebuilding everything life once shattered. You didn't notice it at first. You were just praying, trying to stay steady, trying to stay sincere. But the more you prayed, the more something inside started healing. Not with loud changes, not with sudden transformation, but with peace that grew drop by drop. Ramadan Salah has a way of entering the deepest corners of your heart, the places even you don't talk about, the broken trust, the heartbreak you never expressed, the mistakes you still regret, the loneliness you hide behind jokes, the fears you carry alone at night. Every time you stand for prayer, Allah touches those hidden places with mercy. In ruku, He calms the storms inside you. In sujud, He gathers the pieces you lost along the way. In every whispered dua, He rewrites chapters you thought were ruined forever. And slowly, something beautiful begins to happen. You stop viewing yourself through the lens of your past. You stop defining yourself by your failures. You stop believing the lies your pain once told you. You begin to rebuild, not because life suddenly became easier, not because your struggles disappeared, but because prayer gave your heart the strength to rise again. One night, during a quiet Isha or a soft Taraweeh prayer, you feel a sudden clarity, a moment where your heart whispers, "I'm healing you." Realize the things that once broke you no longer control you. The wounds that once defined you now teach you. The pain that once silenced you now strengthens you. This is the silent power of Salah. It repairs what the world damages. And this rebuilding isn't temporary. It's not fragile. It's not shallow. It's deep, lasting, transformative. Because Allah does not rebuild a heart just to leave it weak. He rebuilds it to make it stronger than it ever was. By the time you end your prayer, one truth settles quietly inside. You are no longer the broken version of yourself. You are becoming the healed version, one prayer, one tear, one sujud at a time. The moment you start loving Salah, not just doing it, there's a turning point in Ramadan that many people experience but rarely talk about. A moment when Salah stops feeling like something you have to do and starts feeling like something you want to do. It's subtle, it's quiet, it happens in the heart long before it shows in your routine. But when it happens, everything about your relationship with Allah changes. It usually begins on an ordinary day, maybe at Fajr when the sky is soft and silent. Maybe during Maghrib when the call to prayer fills the air. You stand to pray out of habit, like you always do. But the moment you say Allahu Akbar, something inside clicks. You feel present. You feel calm. You feel connected. The prayer that once felt like an obligation now feels like a comfort you don't want to miss. And that shift, that quiet shift, is one of the greatest gifts of Ramadan. Because loving Salah is a different experience than just performing it. When you love Salah, your heart arrives before your body. Your soul bows before your back does. Your tears fall before your words even come out. You begin to crave that moment of stillness, that sacred space where the world can't reach you, stress can't touch you, and sadness can't hold you. And strangely, the more you love prayer, the more prayer loves you back. You start noticing Allah guiding your thoughts, calming your heart, protecting your steps, and removing people, habits, and situations that you didn't have the strength to walk away from yourself. You begin understanding why the Prophet called Salah the coolness of his eyes. Because when you taste the sweetness of connection with Allah, every other sweetness feels small. As Ramadan continues, this love grows. You start preparing for Salah earlier. You start walking toward it with eagerness instead of pressure. You begin praying longer without even realizing it. Not because you're trying to be perfect, but because your heart finally feels at home. And nothing feels better than returning to the one who created you, forgives you, understands you, and never abandons you. By the end of the prayer, a quiet truth settles inside you. Salah is no longer a task. It's your peace, your anchor, your safe place, your heartbeat. And once you taste that love, you will never want to lose it again. When Salah becomes the light that guides your decisions, as Ramadan moves forward, you begin to notice something deeper happening in your life. Salah is no longer just healing your heart. It's guiding your choices. Decisions that once felt confusing now feel clearer. Paths that once looked dark now seem illuminated. And the reason is simple. When your heart connects to Allah, your life begins to align with His guidance. It starts in small moments. You're about to react in anger, but you remember your last prayer, and you stay calm instead. You're tempted to fall into an old habit, but the peace from your Salah pulls you back. You're unsure about a decision, but a quiet thought comes during sujud that pushes you toward what's right. This is the hidden power of prayer in Ramadan. It brings clarity where confusion lived for years. Salah doesn't just talk to your heart. It teaches it. It teaches you patience. It teaches you discipline. It teaches you courage. And most importantly, it teaches you to trust Allah when you can't see the full picture. One night, during Taraweeh or a late-night prayer, something extraordinary happens. You're standing quietly, listening to the Quran, and suddenly a verse hits you like it was meant only for you. It answers a question you never said aloud. It gives direction to something you've been struggling with. It brings peace to a fear that's been living in your chest. That's when you realize Allah has been guiding you through every single prayer. The more you pray, the more your decisions shift. You stop choosing based on fear and start choosing based on faith. You stop rushing into things and start seeking signs. You stop chasing people and start chasing Allah's pleasure. You stop asking, "What do I want?" and start asking, "What does Allah want for me?" And this shift changes your entire life. Your relationships improve. Your priorities become clearer. Your goals become purer. Your heart becomes lighter. Salah becomes your internal compass, the tool that keeps you from getting lost in your emotions, your past, or the world's distractions. By the time you finish your prayer, you feel more grounded, more focused, more certain about who you are and where you're going. Because a heart connected to Allah doesn't walk blindly. It walks with light, the light that comes from every ruku, every sujud, every whispered dua. And deep inside, you understand a powerful truth. When Salah guides your decisions, Allah guides your life. The night when Allah comes closer. There are nights in Ramadan that feel different, nights when the world becomes unbelievably quiet, when even the air carries a softness you can't explain. And on those nights, when you stand in Salah, something powerful happens. It feels like your heart has been waiting for this silence, for this moment, for this exact connection. This is the time the Prophet told us about, the time when Allah comes closest to his servants, closer than we could ever imagine, not in distance, but in mercy, in love, in acceptance. And suddenly, every side feels heavier, yet lighter, heavier with emotion, lighter with relief. People wonder why Salah feels different in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. It's because your soul knows what your body sometimes forgets, that these are the nights when destinies are rewritten. These are the nights when angels fill the sky, when the gates of mercy remain wide open, and when every tear that falls during Salah is counted, lifted, and answered. In these nights, your Salah becomes more than a ritual. It becomes a whisper from a desperate heart, a confession, a surrender, a plea. And Allah listens, truly listens. Maybe all year, your Salah was rushed. Maybe it felt empty. Maybe you only prayed because you had to. But in Ramadan, especially during these nights, something inside you breaks open. The walls around your heart crumble. The noise in your mind fades. And for the first time in a long time, you pray because you want to, because you need to, because you finally feel Him. You stand, you bow, you fall into sajda, and it feels like you're falling into mercy itself. You stay there longer, your forehead pressed against the ground, your breath shaking, your soul pouring out everything it held inside. And somehow, it feels like someone lifted the weight off your chest. That moment, that relief, that peace flowing through your body like warm light. That's the power of Salah in the nights when Allah comes closest. A sinner becomes forgiven. A broken heart becomes healed. A hopeless person finds a way. And all of it from a single sajda made with sincerity. These nights are not normal nights. These prayers are not normal prayers. Because this is the time when Allah is waiting for you. And your Salah finally leads you back to Him. When sins start melting in sujud, there comes a moment in Ramadan when Salah stops feeling like a duty and starts feeling like a cleansing. It's subtle at first, you don't notice it when you raise your hands or when you whisper Allahu Akbar. But somewhere between your bowing and rising, somewhere between your recitation and your silence, something inside begins to melt. Not your strength, not your resolve, but your sins. Ramadan has a strange power. Even the hardest hearts soften. Even those who prayed carelessly suddenly feel something stirring inside. And when you go into sujud true, Deep sujud, you realize how heavy you've been carrying your mistakes all year. Sujud is the only position where the body falls, but the soul rises. Your head touches the ground, but your heart reaches the sky. And in Ramadan, that connection becomes unbelievably strong. Every sin you regret, every burden you hide, every guilt you can't talk about, it feels like you finally lay it down before Allah. This isn't just prayer anymore. It's purification. It's release. It's healing. You whisper quietly in sujud, maybe not even with words, maybe just with tears. Tears you never showed anyone. Tears that taste like regret, but also like hope. And with every tear, you feel lighter, because Allah promised that when a servant falls into prostration with sincerity, He raises them in honor. In Ramadan, this promise feels so real it shakes you. You begin to believe that yes, maybe Allah can forgive you. Maybe your past doesn't have to control your future. Maybe the doors you shut on yourself can open again. It's in these sujud-filled moments that change begins. Not in loud speeches, not in perfect routines, but in quiet, trembling whispers whispered to the one who always listens. When you rise from sujud after a long moment, something is different. The world feels clearer. Your chest feels lighter. Your heart feels cleaner. Because in that sajda, your sins didn't stand a chance. They melted. They dissolved. They lost their grip. And what remained was your awe, honest, renewed. This is the power of Salah in Ramadan. It doesn't just wash your sins. It rebuilds your soul. Every sujud is a small resurrection. Every rak'ah is a new beginning. And in these blessed nights, Allah lets you start again. Every single time. The moment your heart finally wakes up. There is a moment in Ramadan when something inside you finally wakes up. It doesn't happen on a specific night, and it doesn't arrive with a warning. It just appears. One moment you're praying the way you always do, and in the very next moment, your heart opens in a way you haven't felt in years. Maybe it happens during Fajr, when the world is silent and the sky is still dark. Maybe it hits you during Taraweeh, when the Imam's voice trembles over verses you've heard 1,000 times but never truly felt. Or maybe it arrives in a random 2-minute prayer you make alone, behind a closed door, away from every distraction. But when it comes, you know, you feel it, because suddenly Salah stops being a routine and becomes a lifeline. Your heart, which has been asleep under the weight of life disappointment, sins, stress, pain, begins to beat differently. It becomes softer, more aware, more alive. For the first time, your eyes wet not because of sadness, but because you finally realize how much Allah has protected you, forgiven you, carried you, and waited for you all year. Your heart felt numb. You prayed, but you didn't feel. You recited, but nothing moved inside. Ramadan changes that. Salah in Ramadan hits deeper, harder, pure, like it's washing not just your sins, but the dust that has covered your heart. This is not an emotional moment. It's a spiritual awakening, a reminder that your soul was made for this connection. You realize that every time you were lost, every time you fell, every time you broke, Allah kept the door open. And now, for the first time in a long time, you step through it with sincerity. Your heart wakes up when you hear words you already knew. Call upon me, I will respond. I am closer to you than your jugular vein. And suddenly, every doubt disappears. You pray with calmness you didn't know you needed. You whisper dua with a trembling voice. You stay longer in sujud because you don't want to rise. Your heart isn't asleep anymore. It's alive. It's aware. It's turning back. And this awakening, this moment when your heart finally opens, is one of the greatest gifts of Salah in Ramadan. Because when the heart wakes up, faith returns, hope returns, and you return to Allah in the most beautiful way. When every rak'ah repairs what life broke. Life has a way of breaking people quietly. Not all wounds are visible. Some are carried deep hidden behind smiles, behind silence, behind "I'm okay." And for many people, by the time Ramadan arrives, their hearts feel worn out, tired, heavy. But Salah in Ramadan has a power that nothing else in this world can match. It repairs what life broke, not instantly, not magically, but steadily, softly, one rak'ah at a time. You stand for prayer, and maybe you don't feel anything in the beginning. Your mind is scattered, your heart is messy, your emotions are everywhere. But as you move standing, bowing, falling into sujud, something begins to shift. Salah in Ramadan isn't just worship. It's therapy from the one who knows your wounds better than you do. In the first rak'ah, you admit your exhaustion without even saying it. In the second, you start letting go of the pain you never talked about. In the third, you realize you don't have to carry everything alone. And by the fourth, your heart finally breathes. Allah doesn't ask you to be perfect. He just asks you to show up. And every time you stand before Him, He fixes a piece of you that you didn't even know was broken. Maybe someone hurt you. Maybe life disappointed you. Maybe you feel like you've failed too many times. But in Salah, especially in Ramadan, Allah gently rewrites the parts of your story that made you feel unworthy. He reminds you that you're not broken beyond repair. You're just returning to the place where healing begins. Every rak'ah becomes a stitch. Every sujud becomes a medicine. Every whispered dua becomes a bandage. And somehow, somewhere in the middle of these nightly prayers, the cracks inside you start closing. The heaviness in your chest starts lifting. The fears in your mind start fading. You walk away from Salah not as someone who prayed, but as someone who rebuilt themselves in the presence of their Creator. That's the miracle of Ramadan. The month doesn't just forgive your sins, it heals your heart. So when you pray tonight, remember, every movement is repairing you. Every tear is cleansing you. Every rak'ah is rebuilding you from the inside out. Because Allah never lets a heart leave His presence the same way it entered. The secret peace hidden between takbeer and taslim. There is a special kind of peace that appears only in Ramadan. Peace you can't touch, can't explain, but you feel it settling over you. The moment you raise your hands and whisper Allahu Akbar, it's like the world pauses for a heartbeat, and everything inside you realigns with a quiet truth. You were made for this moment. Between the opening takbeer and the final salam, something sacred happens. A space opens, a space where guilt doesn't matter, where stress fades, where fear loosens, and where the noise of the world can't reach. It's just you and Allah. And in Ramadan, that space becomes even more powerful. Your mind, which usually races, suddenly slows. Your heart, which feels overwhelmed, finally calms. Your soul, which has been starving all year, begins to breathe. This peace doesn't come from your surroundings. It doesn't depend on how your day went or what burdens you carry. It comes from the one who placed tranquility directly into the chest of the believer. And Salah in Ramadan awakens that tranquility like nothing else. Every verse you recite feels heavier, deeper, not because the words changed, but because you changed. Fasting weakens the ego, softens the heart, humbles the soul. And when your heart softens, Allah's peace enters easily, naturally, beautifully. Sometimes you finish Salah and sit there silently, not because you're tired, but because you don't want to leave that peace behind. It feels like a warm blanket wrapped around your soul, a stillness you didn't know you needed. This peace is a gift, a sign, a reminder that everything you've been searching for in the world, comfort, assurance, stability, is found in the moments you stand before your Creator. The world cannot offer this calm. People cannot offer this comfort. Money, success, distractions, none of them bring the peace that to sincere rakaz in Ramadan bring. Between takbeer and taslim, you're protected. Between takbeer and taslim, you're seen. Between takbeer and taslim, your worries shrink and your faith grows. And when you turn your head and say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, you return to the world, but not empty-handed. You leave with a calmer heart, a lighter mind, a strengthened soul. That is the secret power of Salah in Ramadan. It gives you a peace the world cannot take away. The dua that finally breaks through. There comes a point in Ramadan when you realize that your entire year, every joy, every heartbreak, every fear was leading you toward one specific dua. A dua that has been sitting in your chest for months or maybe years, waiting for the right moment to spill out. And for many people, that moment arrives during Salah. Not during a loud gathering, not during an emotional lecture, but in the quiet, personal, sacred space of your prayer. You stand before Allah, and you can feel it building, this emotion you've been holding in. This request you've been too scared to voice. You bow, you rise, and then, in sujud, something breaks open. Suddenly, the dua you've been avoiding finally escapes. A dua whispered with a trembling voice. A dua soaked in sincerity. A dua that feels like your whole life depends on it. This is the moment when a person stops making routine duas and starts making the dua that defines their heart. And Ramadan is the month when these duas hit the sky with a force you cannot imagine. Because in Ramadan, the gates of mercy are wide open. The angels are recording every whisper. Your fasting makes your prayers purer. Your softened heart makes your words truer. Sometimes you make dua in Salah, and you feel something shift like a door somewhere in the unseen world just unlocked. Like a burden you've been carrying finally loosened its grip. Like Allah heard you in a way He hadn't before. And maybe, for the first time, you believed He heard you. This breakthrough dua doesn't always come with tears. Sometimes it comes with a strange calm. Sometimes with a long silence. Sometimes with your heart beating so loud you feel it in your throat. But you know this one was different, because this time you weren't just asking, you were surrendering, you were trusting, you were letting go. And that's when dua becomes powerful. That's when it rises. That's when it gets accepted. Salah in Ramadan isn't just a ritual, it's the birthplace of life-changing duas. Duas that heal families, open doors, soften hearts, erase sins, cure sadness, and rewrite destinies. So when that dua finally breaks through you, don't hold back. Pour it out. Let it flow. Let it rise. Because Ramadan is the month when whispered duas become written miracles. The night your soul learns to trust again. There are nights in Ramadan when the body is weak, but the soul feels strangely awake. Awake in a way it hasn't been for a long time. These are the nights when Salah becomes more than a prayer. It becomes a rebuilding of trust. A trust you didn't even know you had lost. Life breaks people not just through pain, but through disappointment. People fail you. Plans collapse. Dreams fade. You tell yourself you're okay, but deep down, something inside stops trusting others, trusting yourself. Sometimes even trusting that things will ever get better. But in Ramadan, when you stand for Salah late at night, something changes. There is no one there to judge you, no one to disappoint you, no one to hurt you. It's just you and the one who never leaves. And slowly, your soul learns to trust again. You begin reciting verses you've heard your entire life. But tonight, they hit different. Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. Indeed, with hardship comes ease. My mercy encompasses all things. These words feel like a hand on your heart, steadying it, calming it, repairing it. You bow into ruku, and it feels like you're bowing down the weight of everything you've kept inside. Then you fall into sujud, and for the first time in a long time, you feel safe. Safe enough to let your heart speak truthfully. Safe enough to cry without holding back. Safe enough to trust that your tears won't go unanswered. Salah in Ramadan gives you something life rarely gives. A moment where trust and vulnerability can exist together. You whisper your fears. You confess your weaknesses. You admit your confusion. And Allah responds with calmness, not with words you can hear, but with a peace you can feel. A peace that tells you you're not alone. You were never alone. When you rise from sujud, your chest feels lighter. Your spirit feels steadier. Something inside you begins to heal. Not because your problems vanished, but because you started trusting Allah with them. This trust doesn't transform your life in one night, but it transforms you. It gives you the strength to keep walking, to keep hoping, to keep praying, because now your soul knows. If Allah is with you, you're safe. If Allah is guiding you, you won't get lost. If Allah is listening, no dua is wasted. And that is the miracle of Salah in Ramadan. It teaches a broken heart how to trust again. The light that begins to grow inside you. There comes a point in Ramadan when you realize something inside you is changing quietly, steadily, beautifully. It doesn't happen with a dramatic moment. It grows slowly, like dawn breaking after a long night. And that light begins growing inside you every time you stand for Salah. At first, you don't notice it. You just feel a little calmer after each prayer, a little lighter, a little more hopeful. You think it's just the effect of fasting or the atmosphere of Ramadan. But then one night, while praying alone, you pause because something feels different. You feel a warmth in your chest that wasn't there before. a clarity in your thoughts, a softness in your heart. This is the Noor, the spiritual light that Salah plants inside a believer, especially in Ramadan. It's not visible to the eyes, but you feel it. You feel it when you stop snapping at people, when your anger becomes shorter and your patience becomes longer, when your mind stops racing and your heart stops drowning in negativity, when you begin choosing kindness without even trying. That's the light of Salah at work. Ramadan strengthens this light like nothing else. Every rak'ah increases it. Every sujud brightens it. Every verse you recite feeds it like water, feeding a seed buried deep in the soil. Salah becomes the sunlight for your soul. Fasting becomes the soil that softens. Dua becomes the water that nourishes. And slowly, you begin to bloom. You might still have problems. You might still feel lonely. You might still struggle with your past. But you are not the same anymore. Your heart is waking up. Your soul is being rebuilt. Your faith is returning stronger than before. People around you may not understand the transformation. They may not see what's happening inside you, but you feel it, this new sense of direction, purpose, and calm. You begin to crave Salah instead of forcing yourself into it. You stay longer in sujud without planning to. You whisper du'as with a softness you didn't know you had. And that's how the light grows. Not with perfection, not with dramatic change, but with consistency, sincerity, and quiet connection. Ramadan doesn't just light your nights with Taraweeh, it lights your heart with faith. And by the time the month ends, you realize something powerful. You are not the person you were when Ramadan began. Salah changed you. Salah softened you. Salah filled you with light. Light that will guide you long after Ramadan is gone. The transformation you carry beyond Ramadan. When Ramadan ends, the world goes back to its normal rhythm. The nights feel quieter. The days feel faster. The warmth of those spiritual moments you lived through begins to fade slowly. But there is one thing that remains. One thing that doesn't disappear with the crescent moon. The transformation that Salah built inside you. Ramadan does not change your life for 30 days. It changes you for the life ahead. And if you pray with sincerity, if you poured your heart into sujud, if you stood before Allah with truth and humility, then what you carry out of Ramadan is priceless. It is a new version of yourself, cleaner, softer, stronger, more connected to your Creator. You begin to notice that the discipline of praying on time stays with you. The calmness you felt after Salah still returns when you whisper Allahu Akbar. The tears that fell in your sujud become a memory that keeps your heart humble. This is the real power of Salah in Ramadan. It doesn't end when the month ends. It leaves a trail of guidance inside you. You walk differently, more aware that Allah is watching over you. You speak differently, more gentle, more careful. You think differently, remembering that Allah answered you when you were weak. And so, you protect your Salah the way you protect something precious. Not because you fear losing yourself, but because you know this is the connection that rebuilt you. There will be days after Ramadan when you feel lazy, when your heart feels distant, when life becomes heavy again. That is normal. But when you return to the prayer mat, you remember the person you became in Ramadan, the one who cried in sujud, the one who felt Allah's closeness, the one whose heart finally healed. And that memory pulls you back. It strengthens you. It reminds you who you truly are. Salah becomes your anchor, your refuge, your way back to peace. Because the truth is, Ramadan didn't just give you beautiful nights. It gave you a new heart. A heart that knows where to return. A heart that tasted the sweetness of faith. A heart that will never again settle for a life without Salah. And that is the final chapter of this journey. Not the end of Ramadan, but the beginning of a spiritually awakened you.